All right, guys, so today we're going to go over some of the parts that we have for the 335D build and do a little bit of an unboxing. In the first video, some of the stuff we were back and forth on, didn't know which way we were going. So a lot of stuff we made that decision on, and so I wanted to show you guys what the plan is and what we have so far for this car. We're going to start with the boring stuff first with the maintenance stuff, and then we'll get into suspension and everything else with the car. So to start us off, while we're in there, we're going to do a lot to this car to bring it up to date with maintenance stuff. It's throwing some codes for certain things. BMWs are particular, so everything needs to be in working order. Plus, with the new parts that we're putting on, a lot of these wearable items we're going to replace as well. So like we just have oil filter, very basic thing. We also have brand new rear hubs. So these are pressed on to the rear wheel bearing here. So those get pressed on and then they get snap ringed into the rear knuckles. So we got new one of these. Some people can get the old race off and everything, but I just chose to replace them. We also have 90mm stud conversions for these. So we have these studs and brand new lug nuts as well. So same thing goes for the front hub assemblies. We're going to be converting from the lug bolts to these 90mm studs. So this will allow us to put a slip-on spacer if we want to fine-tune that fitment, or if we need to for the front angle. So we have that, and the rear hubs. We got two of these, and then we also have two of the wheel bearing kits. So these kits are going to come with the wheel bearing itself. So we have that there. And then we have the snap ring and a new axle nut as well. Normally these axle nuts kind of get destroyed, and also you're supposed to crimp those down onto the axle to keep them from coming loose. So just replace that while we're in there. So we got two of those for the rear. And then we have a brand new fuel filter as well. And we have a bunch of the serpentine belt system replacement as well. Things like idler pulleys. Want to replace those while we're in there. We got new tensioner pulley there. And then we have... Oh, this is the tensioner pulley. So that one must be the actual tensioner itself. So new tensioner pulley and tensioner for the serpentine belt system. Want to make sure that that's all up to par for the high revs and the abuse that drifting gives these cars. So we're going to jump into these front wheel hub assemblies. So we got brand new front wheel hub assemblies as well. And these, of course, are going to get that stud conversion. And so these are going to go bolt into our front knuckles. They come with new bolts as well. So that will be another wearable item. Pretty sure one of the wheel bearings is already going out in this car anyways, so needed to happen. So we got two of those guys. And then here we have a new center support bearing for the rear drive shaft. Common maintenance part, and especially with the clutch kicks and everything that this rear drive shaft is going to see, we want to make sure that that's up to maintenance as well. So we got a new one of those. And then, of course, probably the more wearable item on these drive shafts is the guibo. So this goes between the drive shaft and the transmission. And so we got a new one of those to take the abuse and the torque that this car is going to be putting down. So we got that. We got hubs. This is a release fork. I tried ordering one with the clutch that I ended up getting, but they were on indefinite back order. So they gave me some cross-reference part numbers, and so this is a aftermarket but OE replacement for the diesel setup. So we got a new fork, new release bearing. This is a Luke setup. We will see how long that lasts, but it was a quarter of the price of OEM, so I'm going to try it. And then, of course, we got our studs and the lug nuts there. And then we have a new vacuum line, silicone heavy wall vacuum line. So the bi-turbo setup on this car is operated by vacuum and sensors. So we want to make sure but that is all working so that we can have the car running with the most power and least amount of lag and everything. Then we have 6 brand new Bosch glow plugs. This car is throwing a code for one of the glow plugs, so while we're in there, we're just going to do all of them, along with a new controller as well. So this is what the computer talks to, kind of like on a, like an old 7.3. This is essentially the over sophisticated relay for the glow plugs. So we got a new one of those as well. So that will be ready to go in. And this is underneath the intake manifold. So while we're replacing the intake manifold gaskets, might as well. Of course, the might as well is getting away very quickly with this project. Now we have a aluminum coolant flange. This is also under the intake manifold. And the factory one is plastic. Now this one is aluminum. Some people have good or bad success with it. We're going to be replacing the gasket with an OEM one, and then this will fix a typical area that the plastic one will crack, and then you'll have a coolant failure. So I want to lessen that as much as possible. So we got the aluminum one. So we're going to be putting that in. We did get new O-rings for the hoses that go to this because I didn't replace the whole hose. So we have new O-rings to replace the worn out ones that I'm sure are on there right now. And with the cooling system as well, we have a brand new Gates water pump with brand new metal gasket and the Gates pump there. So this will replace the, I think, original one at 240,000 miles. So a much needed maintenance area that we're going to replace while we're in there. And then we also have, to go with that, of course, we have a brand new, this is an aftermarket one, but a brand new thermostat as well to make sure that the car is getting up to temp and staying cool as well, especially on the track. And then 2 brand new belts, new serpentine belt, and then the AC compressor is ran off of a stretch belt. So this has elastic in it. We'll put that onto the AC compressor because I want working AC in this drift car. Then we have this bag full of miscellaneous O-rings. Some of these are for intercooler piping. Instead of replacing the whole pipe itself, we're just going to replace the O-ring. I don't have any current boost leaks, so I just want to replace the O-rings that we have with those, different intake manifold gaskets. There's also one for the vacuum pump. This has a known vacuum pump leak, so oil is seeping out of there, so we want to replace that. We got our coolant flange O-rings, new turbo seal O-ring as well. We got brand new aluminum bolts for the transmission. So when we attach the manual transmission to the engine, BMW says you need to replace those, so we replace them. And then this is a coolant drain tube for the turbos. Coolant drain or oil drain, either one. We're going to replace it while we're in there. And then I will have to figure out where these small little bolts go to, but I'm sure they're important. And then getting down to the end here, we have some special tools. So with this being a stretch belt, there's some tools that make your life a little bit easier with removal and install of those. So we have 2 of those tools. And then if we need to maintenance the alternator pulley, you need a special tool to take that pulley off. So we have one of those tools, which is a Torx bit in the middle, and then a spline drive that you can hold with a wrench so that you can undo those. We also have a flywheel lock key. This is for doing harmonic balancer. This is for anything that you need to lock the engine so that you can torque down bolts for that. And then either tensioner socket or also for the alternator. But I'm sure we will figure that out while we're in there. Also, last tool, this is a BMW OEM tool for rotating the engine. Now, people who aren't used to BMWs say, well, why do you need a tool for that? Yes, I don't know. But I've done it with a socket before because these engines don't just have one crank bolt. They have 4 small little bolts. And I've done it with like a certain millimeter 12-point socket before, but it doesn't hold it great, and you start rounding off the sides of the bolts that hold your harmonic balancer on. So this is the proper way to do it. It is the expensive way to do it, I will tell you that. But we have an OEM tool for that. This does not work for the Allen head bolts that a lot of people replace these with. It only works for the eTorx replacement bolts for that. So we're going to be replacing those while we're in there. I would have ordered a new fluid dampener, but they are on back order. So off of my spare engine, I will be stealing the fluid dampener that's on that engine and putting it onto this one. So thank you to the spare motor for that. So we have those tools, and then just some really, really important wiper blades. Can't be blind while you're drifting. So that pretty much, I think, gets all of our, we are still waiting on a valve cover gasket and a couple other things for the top of the engine. But that pretty much encompasses our whole maintenance stuff. Boring stuff, I know, but needed to build a reliable drift car as much as possible. Now we're going to get into one other thing for the engine bay. So let me get this off the table. I'm going to grab that, and then we'll get into some other cool stuff. All right, so another thing for the engine bay under the hood area is going to be a cowl delete kit or a M3 cowl conversion, whatever you want to call it. So this is from Turner Motorsports. This replaces the big cabin air filter underneath the hood. And on the diesels, it makes it particularly hard to get to like the last couple injectors. So we're going to eliminate that. We have some of their cabin air filter replacements there. And then there's also some harnesses going across the engine for anybody familiar with the 3 Series or X5 or pretty much any BMW. So this is a bracket that helps hold those to the back of the engine bay, and they give you a lot of zip ties. So if you're low on zip ties, there you go. But this bracket, nicely powder coated, holds it to the back of the engine bay, and then you can zip tie it across that to hold those back and off of the top of the engine where they normally are. So we have that. And then the other couple things that you're going to need, because that factory cowl has some plastic covers that help cover up your computer, your DDE, DME computer, as well as your brake booster and ABS stuff. So these are their complete replacements for covering those up. So these clip into your little rubber seals over by your hood hinges, and so this will cover either the computer side or the brake booster side, but that completely covers those up so that you can get rid of that whole cowl that goes across the engine bay. So it just makes maintenance a lot easier. It looks better in my opinion, amongst other things. You could do a hood exit if you want to with this setup with a diesel or a gasser, whatever your choice is. And now we'll get into a couple others of the goodies. So let me grab some more boxes and we'll go over those. All right, the fun stuff, in my opinion. This is what I'm really excited for. So I'm going to tease you a little bit longer. We're going to go for some bushings before we get into the Wisefab. So these are from RevShift. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. Took advantage of some deals. So most of this was taking advantage of whatever discounts they were applying to everybody, but none of this stuff is sponsored. They're all getting free advertisement. But anyways, RevShift, they are local to us up here in Michigan. So we wanted to support them. So we have some drift spec hardness differential bushings. So these are for the E90s and F Series non-M. We also have a little bit softer transmission mount bushings because we are running the OEM motor mounts on the diesel, not running polyurethane. So we want to go a little bit softer in the transmission so that we're not breaking off the ears of the transmission, which is ideal. And then this big one, we have the subframe bushing. So these are a 2-piece design subframe bushing. Again, drift spec hardness. which I believe is one of their harder ones, almost solid. So we have those. Very excited for those. Heard good things about those, so we're going to put those on. And then into the Wisefab. I'm going to start with the front end. This is the Wisefab Narrow Kit. Now this I was pretty set on in the beginning because I don't want to wide body this car. So this was, to my understanding, the most angle you can get while staying narrow body. So we have some tie rod spacers, it looks like. Then we have inner and outer tie rods for the kit. We have some control arms. Now these are very nice control arms. So I will unwrap them just for you. This is going to take a minute. Now I know where all my money goes into packing material. All right, well, that took forever, but they wrapped them very nicely. So this is one of the lower control arms. So with adjustable heims, you have caster camber adjustment. And then we have these really nicely machined knuckle adapters. So these are going to bolt into where the factory control arm and tie rod bolts into it, or this way if I look at it correctly. And then it's going to readjust it for their lower control arm as well as their outer tie rod. You also have an adjustable angle lock or steering stop here, which we're going to just max that out, I'm sure. So you have two of those, very nice. And then all that's else is in this box is the other lower control arm. I'm not going to spend the time unwrapping that until I'm installing it. All right, so that's the front kit, narrow kit. I'm excited about that. This is the rear kit. Now, in the first video of this series, I was going back and forth on if I wanted to do just adjustable control arms or a different grip kit. The reason I went with Wisefab is for a couple different reasons. Mainly the drop knuckle and how they just change all of the suspension pickup points and fix a lot of the E90, lowered E90 suspension issues. So, first off, we're going to look at this rear knuckle. And I'm going to spend the next 7 minutes unwrapping this thing. All right, and this is the rear knuckle. So this is a drop knuckle. So the actual point of where the axle and the bearing are up farther than factory. So that allows you to keep your suspension pickup points for your control arms lower or closer to factory height so that you have a lot better camber gain and toe gain all through the suspension travel. So that's the main reason I went through with Wisefab. It's currently on the market, one of the only grip kits for E90. Grip kit mainly meaning that you just have the ability to get the most grip out of the car. With stock stuff, like with my wife's E90, one of the issues that we have is under compression, the car toes out. So with where the toe arm is on the back of these knuckles, when it compresses, it actually pushes the wheel out. So then you lose traction and the back end typically comes out from around you. I'm sure you can learn how to drive with that, but I don't care to. So I wanted to have full adjustment over everything. We also have dual caliper capabilities with retaining ABS sensor, if that's something that you want to do, and I will most likely do, even though ABS will always be off. So we have the rear knuckle there, and this is why we have new bearings and new hubs, because we might as well replace those while we're in there. And then with that, these are all labeled numerically, but I believe these to be the toe arms. So these are fully adjustable toe arms for the rear of the knuckle to be able to adjust that toe. And then number 7 is probably, I'm going to guess that's probably anti-squat. So you have anti-squat adjustability, which you can move up and down for more anti-squat or less anti-squat or positive or negative anti-squat. So we have those adjustable arms as well. And then number 6 or number 9 is going to be camber arms, or upper camber arms at least. So these are fully adjustable as well. All these control arms are adjustable. Again, big adjustment in dialing in this rear suspension, getting the car to drive how you want it to. The other rear knuckle as well. And then we have the trailing arms, go from in front of the knuckle to the back of it, this way. And these come with new joints to push into the subframe for that attachment as well. Again, fully adjustable. So we have two of those, one for each side. And then we have fully fabricated shock and spring arms. So these also have a joint for up front to be pressed into the subframe. So we'll do that while we're doing all the subframe bushings and everything. And these are set up for a divorce setup. So you have the spring and the shock, a typical factory setup. Also what I'm running in the rear is still a divorce setup. So this will work really well for that. These are non-adjustable, which is fine. You have all the other adjustment in the world. And then we have two of those guys, and that is everything. So that is a full front and rear, narrow rear Wisefab kit for the E90. So I'm really excited about this. I chose to go with the full Wisefab kit. I got a decent deal on it this time of year. And so we're gonna roll with that and be able to adjust pretty much everything and get the car to drive how I want to. And I'm really excited for that. So now that we got the good stuff out of the way, we have a couple more goodies too. We still have the clutch to go over and some interior stuff. So bear with me while I again clear out this table and get you some new stuff to look at. Okay, so this is the clutch setup that we ended up going with. This company is out of Australia, and this is a Uniclutch. So they have some fancy packaging. So you get the box, and then you pull out this whole zipper container thing. It's pretty cool. Bunch of stickers and information in that one. This is their dual disc track setup. So this has the most pound-feet rating on it at 850 pound-feet, something like that. I think it's 1,000 Newton meters, which is about 850 pound-feet. So I'm not going to fully take it apart, but this is a 9-inch clutch pack. Looks like there's a 6-puck disc. One of them is 6 pucks and one of them is a semi-organic pad. So it kind of has some pretty good street manners. We're going to fully find out. I've heard pretty good things about it, but again, there weren't many options for a solution for this car and the setup. There were a lot overseas. Some of them wouldn't even ship to us from like Romania and things. Apparently it's too expensive to ship to us. So this was the most readily available solution for what we needed. And the whole thing with this clutch setup and why we could find it for this car is Uniclutch is kind of like a universal clutch. And what makes it attached to your vehicle is a fitment kit. So this is the fitment kit that attaches to an OE style flywheel. And so the flywheel that we have coming is an OE style single mass flywheel. This ring slides into these grooves and it looks something like that. So then with this fitment kit, you can use these different spacers, and these are going to attach to it like this. And this allows different bolt patterns for you to attach it to many different flywheels, different setups. So, but you fine tune that with your different spacer kits. And then with that, they give you 7 different input splines. So depending on your input shaft, you find the spline that fits yours. And then this goes in to here and a snap ring holds that in so that this can be adapted to your particular transmission and then your particular flywheel. So that's kind of what Uniclutch is about, making it more universal. Plus, I'm sure from a manufacturing standpoint, it makes it more cost effective, that's for sure. We're going to be running this. I know of one other manual swap 335 that runs this clutch, so I know that it can work. So we're going to be running that with their fitment kit, and that should hold all the power that we need and be relatively easy to maintain and replace if we need to down the line. They do have some warehouses in the States, so we are able to get stuff relatively quickly. And again, not sponsored by them, just got a good deal and excited to use that part in this build. So let me put this together and then we're going to go over one other category of the interior pieces. All right, so now we're into some interior things. So we'll start with the biggest one. We have 2 NRG Prismas. I really like these seats. I run them in the Fox body. I run them in the Ranger. They're comfortable. They're affordable. I just went with all black Alcantara on this setup since we're doing a black interior swap, and they come with NRGs. side brackets as well. Never really had any issues besides bolts coming loose, so that was on the Mustang. I'm sure on this it's going to rattle too. I'm just going to make sure that I'm Loctiting all of the bolts that go into these seats. But we have these. I have a large for the passenger side so that I can give ride-alongs to pretty much anybody, and then a medium for my driver's seat. So this is a lot of stuff from Garagistic, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard it 5 different ways, man. I don't know how to say it. So I'm going to continue with seat stuff before pulling out more of this. But here we have some of their seat brackets. So these are fully machined seat brackets that are packaged very nicely. So these allow a lot of adjustability. They bolt directly to the floor of the vehicle, and then they have these different adjustments. You can go forward, side to side. These are a really nice piece. Got a good deal on them. So I picked these up, and I'm super excited to use those as well. So we have those. We have the large side as well. So we have the large side on that as well. I'm sure it can handle many different seats, but excited for that. Got the black anodized ones, of course. Want to match the black interior. And we have some of those for both seats. So driver and passenger get one of those. And then we have a shifter solution. So in the last video, when we got some of the parts out of the hoopty, we found out that the all-wheel drive shifter won't work with the rear-wheel drive transmission, which is probably obvious to some people, but I wanted to chance it. To remedy that, I priced out to get one of those adapters, or the shifter base, for a rear-wheel drive car, and most people wanted $100 to $150 for one of those. I'm sure I could have found them cheaper somewhere, but I got $150 into that. And then to replace all the bushings in those, because I'm sure that they're worn out as well, you got another 50 to 60 bucks into that. So, you know, around $200 into that setup. And for the same price, I can get this. So this is a direct mount, chassis mounted short throw shifter. So this has the black anodized base here, and then you have a nice billet piece that goes on the bottom here. And this will go into your trans tunnel. This bolts into 3 factory bolt holes on the E90s. And then this is going to go through your floor into your trans tunnel and attach to a DSSR, dual shear selector rod. Now, I got the DIY version because, as stated before, I'm told that the diesels are slightly different. And so I want the adjustability to be able to make it to that. So I didn't know which one to select of their pre-made DSSRs. So this allows me to have the rod and be able to make it to whatever length I want or need. So those go together, trust me. So this attaches here and bolts onto there. It doesn't allow a lot of like side-to-side action, which BMW shifters are known for, even after you do a short throw or bushings and things like that. So we have DSSR that's also going to attach to a brand new billet selector joint. Very important instructions I'm not going to read. And then, so this goes on to the transmission itself and replaces the worn out factory one. So getting as much of that slack out of this shifter as possible. So that goes on to the other side of this DSSR on the transmission side. So that attaches there. And then, oh, forgot about these. These go with the seat brackets so you can run factory seat belts, which is what I plan on doing. I don't plan on running harnesses in this car yet until I need or want a roll cage, a full roll cage. So thankfully we can just run the factory seat belts on there. And then I went with the OEM size rod on this shifter. You can do short, you can do medium, long, if you like it that way. But I went with the OEM. So this screws on top here and then allows you to run a factory shift knob if you want to, or they sent a Delrin version. This is kind of just their default shift knob. I don't know if I'll keep it or maybe I'll go fancy and do something later, but this is, at least I have something. So this is just a basic non-weighted, it's actually pretty light shift knob, and then this has an adapter so that you can thread it on here, but then you can run it onto the factory setup. So obviously this is all loosely put together. I can run a factory shift boot on the inside, and then I can also, if I want to, I think I can still run that sound deadening. That's a small little thing most people don't care about, but it's important to me to make the comfortability of the car as much as possible. So I'm really excited for this. This is the shifter setup for the interior, and this is going to mitigate a lot of the problems that I was having with trying to find shifter solutions for this car and the DSSR. So this allows us to have as much customizability over this setup and to have the best experience while driving it. So really excited for that. And that pretty much includes everything that we have for this car so far. I'm super excited to be starting this build. It's been a little delayed. We have some other projects. Our barn is full. We have some other personal projects and some work projects. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to dive into this project as soon as we want. But rest assured, I am just as excited as most of you are to see this. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be tearing into this car, pulling the engine, pulling the transmission, pulling the rear subframe, do the interior swap. And a lot of that progress will go pretty quickly once we're onto that project. So I'm glad that we have a lot of these parts. We can get a lot of progress done. We are still waiting on a couple of things. One of those specifically being the flywheel that is custom made to order. And it was 1 to 3 weeks out from when we ordered it, plus shipping from overseas. So hopefully we see that soon. So we need our flywheel. We also need our handbrake. With the Wisefab stuff doing a dual caliper, we're doing a hydro handbrake on it. I am gonna ditch the factory handbrake, and I would still like to find a way to have like kind of a parking brake solution, but we'll figure that out later. So we're still waiting on the handbrake stuff and a couple other maintenance items. And then I'm sure we're gonna find some stuff along the way that this car is gonna need. So we'll cross those bridges as well. But for now, I'm super excited. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on what we got. Do you like Wisefab? Do you not? Do you think that we should have done anything differently? We are pre-install, so let me know your thoughts, concerns on that. And if you want to see anything else go into this car. We're still undecided on a rear exit exhaust going all the way out the back, single exit, or a hood exit. I'm going back and forth. Some guys have done the hood exit and had good success. I don't know drift-wise if a hood exit will pass all of the tech stuff. So if you do know, let me know. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you want to see this build as it progresses along, be sure to subscribe as well. Appreciate everybody's support, and we'll catch you on the next one.